Welcome to this webinar to celebrate International Women's Day, or rather to discuss how we should all celebrate International Women's Day at work. Obviously, today is for March the 1st, so we're getting very, very close to March the 8th, only 7 days away until International Women's Day. So now is a great time to discuss this topic, and it's very current. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Perrine Farque. I am an author, I am a keynote speaker, and I am a diversity and inclusion expert. You can read some of my books. You can find them on Amazon or on very good booksellers, such as Waterstones or Toys in the UK, or if you prefer Amazon, it's great as well. So I've written a couple of books on the topics of inclusion in the workplace and creating inclusive workplace culture. So I really do encourage you to read them if you haven't yet. And today we are going to discuss a few points regarding International Women's Day. So we are going to discuss why, in the first place, we should celebrate International Women's Day, how you can celebrate International Women's Day in your own organization, some ideas for celebrating International Women's Day, some best practices and some takeaways. And of course, as I discussed earlier, we are going to have a Q&A session at the end. And actually, I really encourage you to use the Q&A button now. Even you don't have to wait until the end. Please do, respond as we go through each slide. Please do respond immediately and share your feedback, your questions, your comments, because we want to keep this session as interactive as possible. So I really encourage you to type your questions and your comments in the Q&A. So why should we celebrate International Women's Day in the first place? Well, there are a couple of very, very good reasons for organizations. The first one is it's a key opportunity to celebrate women's achievements in the workplace. It's a key time to reflect on all the achievements that women have delivered over the past centuries, or months or weeks, years. So in the world of football, as you can see here from this picture, obviously the women's football has been a great place to celebrate women's achievement in sports. But beyond that, in the technology industry or in the construction industry, women are making some progress in terms of accessing to more leadership positions and getting promoted more often. So we should really pause and reflect as an organization on all the achievement that women have accomplished in the workplace. Another very good reason to celebrate International Women's Day is to demonstrate your organization's commitment and support to inclusion for female employees. It's very tempting for organizations to regard International Women's Day as just another day of the calendar and that it doesn't really impact the business. But there is a lot of research demonstrating that it's a key. Obviously, investing in gender diversity is going to help not only with talent attraction, but talent retention. A lot of organizations have very high on their agenda attracting female talent, but also retaining female talent. So it's becoming even more so now than ever before, a key priority to attract female talent and retain female talent in the workplace, and really to show that your organization is committed to supporting gender diversity in the workplace. And of course, it's a great opportunity to demonstrate that you have leadership commitment to gender equality. I think a lot of organizations know now that leadership commitment to gender equality is key. And without leadership commitment, without the buy-in and the commitment from the senior leadership team, it's going to be very difficult to show results when it comes to gender diversity, gender equality. So it's a great opportunity to showcase that your leadership team is really supporting, but also committed to gender equality in your workplace. And finally, it's a great opportunity to flag up or to raise awareness of some of the issues that are still faced by women today in the workplace. So even though we were in 2023 and a lot of advancements have happened, the gender pay gap is still very real in all countries. Although it's wider in specific countries and not as wide in other countries, but the gender pay gap is still exists. And also there is less representation at the leadership level. Women still don't get promoted at the same rate as men get promoted, and still don't have access to leadership position or gender equal pay as at the same rate as men. So it's a very important opportunity for you and your organization to raise awareness of these issues, such as gender pay gap, lack of representation in leadership, and discuss how can your organization truly build a long-term strategy to achieve gender equality in the workplace. And last but not least, it is an excellent opportunity to also educate not only your colleagues, but your daughters, wider family, and younger women around the globe around the issues women are still facing today. There are a lot of colleagues in your workplace, in everybody's workplace, who perhaps are unaware of things that are affecting women in the workplace today, such as the gender gap, lack of promotion opportunities, lack of representation in leadership. And so by raising awareness, you're really educating. It's really an education piece, an awareness piece for your colleagues, and beyond that, for their own surroundings, so their own family, their own friend, etc. So it's very important to educate your teams. So now we've discussed why it's important to celebrate International Women's Day. So let's talk about how we can celebrate International Women's Day. The first sort of takeaway that I can share with you today is to run your own International Women's Day campaign in the workplace. So if you're following the official International Women's Day website, they are sharing a theme for this year, and the theme for this year is Embrace Equity. So last year's theme, if I remember correctly, was Break the Bias, and this year is about embracing equity. And so it's a very important, it's a great opportunity for you to discuss what does equity mean, what does gender equity mean in your organization, and what you can do to support that. So the first step here is really to research this theme, to research the idea of equity, gender equity, and really to form a team internally. So for some organization, it's going to be the employee resource group. So some organizations have an existing employee resource group for women. They might call it a women's circle or a women ERG or women employee resource group. Or they call it lots of different things. But if you have a group of usually made of volunteers who are running your Women in the Workplace initiatives, that could be the best place to start. Now, if you don't have already women ERG, you can form a team for that occasion, which could actually kickstart a women employee resource group. But it's very important to start by running your own International Women's Day campaign in the workplace. Then, of course, the second step is to identify your objectives. So what are your goals? Is it around, do you wish to celebrate achievements in the workplace? And if so, how will you measure success? How will you measure if your initiative has delivered the goals that you've set before? Are you going to measure mentions perhaps on social media of your campaign? Are you going to measure how many participants you get to your event? Are you going to measure how many members you get to your Women ERG? Or are you going to measure long-term progress, perhaps representation of women in the leadership position or the rate of promotion of women? So it's very important to set objectives. It could be around celebrating achievement of women in the workplace. It could be raising awareness of women in leadership positions in your workplace. And also think about, what issues you would like to focus on. Would you like to focus on gender inequality, gender stereotypes, unconscious bias, or other? There are so many topics within the umbrella of International Women's Day that is very important that you choose which topic are you going, which theme, which topic are you going to focus on this year? And ask yourself questions like, is this part of a brand awareness campaign? Is this going to be, is this going to help you recruit more women into key positions in the workplace? And it's, having multiple objectives is absolutely fine. Maybe you can have 3 objectives with this campaign, but it's very important that you identify and you write down your objectives, because what doesn't get measured doesn't get tracked. What doesn't get tracked doesn't get measured. So it's very important to identify your goals and then measure. And then think about your target audience. So who will be your target audience? Will it be, who will be involved in this campaign? Will it be internally? Will it be your employees? Will it be your management team? Will it be your customers? Will it be potential candidates? Will it be partners, your ecosystem? Will it be, vendors? And all of the above. So really think carefully about who you want to target with this campaign and who will need to get involved. So if it's a generic brand awareness campaign and you want to discuss how gender equity is important for your organization, well, it might be a very public campaign and you might involve your prospects, your customers, even the general public with a lot of social media, emails, etc. But if it's a recruitment campaign, maybe it's more about your employees or your potential candidates. And of course, if you're on a very public International Women's Day campaign, you might involve third parties such as keynote speakers or industry representatives or even female leaders in your own organization. So think carefully about who you would like to target and who will need to get involved in your campaign. And then, of course, at this point, you have everything you need to decide exactly how you will proceed. So once you've identified your goals, and you've identified your target audience, then you can decide how you're going to operate. So perhaps you want to host a workshop on a specific diversity and inclusion topic for your workforce, which other organizations are doing this month. Perhaps you want to host a celebration event for employees. And again, a lot of organizations are doing a series of events throughout the whole month of March to celebrate International Women's Day. Maybe actually you're planning more marketing communication, and maybe it's going to be your marketing team who is going to be involved, your advertising, maybe your social media team, maybe you're going to have some website updates, you're going to post some videos, maybe you're going to have some posters in your workplace. So that's going to be more of a marketing effort. Maybe you're going to go as far as writing a press release announcing a new initiative. So perhaps you want to share very publicly that you've hired a series of leadership headcounts, and those are women headcounts, and you want to announce this as part of your company's strategy to support and promote gender equity. So perhaps you're going to go as far as writing a press release, or even you want to volunteer for a local women's charity. There are a lot of women's charities locally, wherever you are, and maybe you're going to organize a fundraising event. So one thing I always suggest is to also be very consultative and ask your team what they want to do, because sometimes we have biases. So by asking your team, asking people, actually, what do you think we should do for International Women's Day? Maybe you will hear some team will say, actually, I think we should really host a fundraising event or volunteering, for a charity. Actually, some teams might say, actually, we always hear about the same people internally. Why don't we hire an external speaker? So really ask your team what they want to do is going to be key in the success of your campaign. And then, of course, once you've identified what you want to do, then you can start creating all the material and the resources you need. So a lot of organizations are creating badges that people can wear on International Women's Day, or they're creating social media cards that people can post on social media, or they are creating social media posts and things like that. So really think about the material, the content. Maybe you're going to create an ebook, or maybe you're going to create a blog post, or maybe you're going to create a series of social media awareness posts. So really think about what channels you're going to use and what content you're going to post. And so at this point that, now we've discussed why we should celebrate International Women's Day and how you should celebrate, let's talk a little bit about some ideas. And I'd love to see in the chat or in the Q&A box what you are planning for your own International Women's Day, or even if you would like to share something that you've done before and that worked really, really well. So I'd love to hear your own ideas. But one thing I can share with you is you can ask your staff to get involved in the Embrace Equity social media campaign, and you can ask your staff to post regularly on your channel. So here at Inspired Human, I've asked my team, so you can see Flor here on the left-hand side, and Lindsay with the white jumper, and myself, and we all wanted to post a picture of ourselves with our hands crossed here for Embrace Equity, for the theme of embracing equity. And it was really fun, actually. It was a good time for us to come together as a team and to reflect, to really pause and reflect about what have we achieved, in our organization or beyond. And it's also a fun activity to do with the team, and it creates a lot of team building, sort of bonding experience as well. So that's really, really fun. You can, of course, arrange a workshop. There are a ton of ideas. So, if you're short of ideas, I can share with you some of the most not successful, some of the most on-demand workshops that we get for International Women's Day. People want us often to talk about things like allyship at work. What does allyship at work look like? Or even championing women at work. How can men champion women at work? That's a very successful workshop. Another one we deliver is around more introduction to unconscious bias, because obviously there's a lot of unconscious bias that comes into play when it comes to gender equity. Or sometimes people want to, as part of their diversity and inclusion efforts, they want us to talk about transgender awareness and how do transgender colleagues feel around International Women's Day and how we can support them. Another very interesting topic is around menopause in the workplace and how menopause impacts women in the workplace. And parents and carers. A lot of women still in 2023 bear a lot of the childcare duties, and it impacts a lot of their careers and promotion. So the parents and care workshop is another very on demand. But the idea here is whichever topic you're going to choose, is hosting a workshop to educate your team on International Women's Day is a great way to get people educated and aware, and so that everybody can become more champions of women in the workplace. Of course, you can also have a keynote speaker to deliver more of a global kind of at-scale event, especially if it's a virtual keynote session. You can reach so many more people across the globe. So the advantage of the keynote session is that if it's a virtual keynote session, you can reach so many more people. Some companies want to host a hybrid keynote session, which is the speaker comes face to face, but they also record at the same time, so they can share live with other geos at the same time. So the keynote is much more inspirational, sort of thought leadership, and really motivating. So depending on where your team is at and what works best with your team, you might opt for the workshop for a smaller group or more hands-on, or the keynote that's much more inspiring and I'd say really good to kickstart the conversations. You can also do things like arranging a bring an ally event type or activity to really invite people to think about what is an ally and what does an ally look like? What does an ally do? So, saying bring an ally to work, really showing how, a lot of great male leaders support women in the workplace, and thinking about the idea of allyship. And really you can host an event around that theme of bringing an ally, whereby you ask your team to think about who is an ally to them and how have they helped them advance their careers. That's another very fun event to organize. Then, of course, it's important to think about, beyond International Women's Day, how are you going to embed your support of gender equity over a longer period of time, beyond the 8th of March? What's going to happen for your organization to really support women in the workplace? So that's when you can start thinking about more of a long-term plan and how you can embed this initiative into a 12-month, 24-month, 36-month plan, whereby you celebrate throughout the year, not just in March, women's success, for example. And then, of course, we talked about creating an employee resource group, whereby you either kickstart a new employee resource group for women in the workplace, or you really elevate an existing employee resource group that needs perhaps a bit of boost, because maybe there is not enough members, there is not enough participants, or maybe there is not enough support. So really think about how you can elevate your existing women employee resource group by coaching your chairs, the chairs of the employee resource group, by providing them with support and ongoing education, and that kind of thing, so that they're not working in an island or in a silo, but they get support from you. And then, of course, the idea of embedding that into your day-to-day activities. So inviting new voices to your meeting. Think about, okay, have I invited diverse voices to my meeting? Do I have meetings where I only have the same, gender, and maybe I need to, mix and match the gender of people in my meeting? Think about ways you can be more inclusive in your meetings as well. And then thinking about assumption. We all have assumptions, we all have biases, including myself. So think about how you can create an ongoing discussion, an ongoing conversation beyond International Women's Day around biases and unconscious bias, and how it can become part of your almost daily conversation, that people become aware that bias is a real thing, and best practices and things we can do to recognize bias. And then, of course, the idea of learning every day. So thinking about beyond International Women's Day, how am I going to support gender equity in the long term? So thinking about how you can truly embed learning every day, every week, every month in your existing activities, in your existing cadence. How can you embed gender equity beyond International Women's Day? So I'd like to share some, real stories, because we've shared about some very, theoretical stories here, but I want to share real concrete stories. I don't know if you know Spryker. Spryker is a very cool e-commerce platform, tech vendor based in Berlin, Germany. So, and Spryker had commissioned us at Inspired Women to really help them increase awareness around diversity, equity, and inclusion. So we've partnered with Spryker to really help them embed inclusion and diversity in their DNA, which they had already done a great job, and we helped them take it to the next step. So we've hosted a series of workshops for their team around cross-cultural awareness, to educate attendees around building inclusion in hybrid work. We've also hosted a workshop around supporting parents and carers, because they have quite a young workforce. So it's really around how can we educate people without children, how the impact of their colleagues who have children, and in particular, a lot of women who have children, and how it's impacting their work and their time at work. And also we've hosted a great workshop on allyship. And as a result, they've, well, I'm going to share with you what they say. They said it's really helped them increase their understanding and awareness of diverse perspectives. It helped them talk about the right things and thinking about diversity and inclusion plans moving forward with measurable goals and accountability. And so it was a great partnership. We really feel that we really helped Spryker establish the diversity and inclusion, really embed inclusion as part of their day-to-day activity. And another success story I'd like to share with you, which is all available on our website, is Salary Finance. Salary Finance is a great leading provider of financial services based in the UK. And again, we partnered with them at the time to help them with their culture. They really wanted to embed a culture, a DNA of diversity and inclusion into their day-to-day activity. So with them, we really partnered with their leadership team, with their senior leadership team, to really raise awareness of what does good look like. And we've delivered a series of workshops with them to raise awareness of things like gender diversity. And as a result, they said it's really helped them having the right conversations and feeling empowered to have the conversation with their team, instead of feeling, paralyzed by the fear of saying the wrong thing. And that was another really great success story in terms of partnering with them with their gender diversity piece. And I just want to finalize before we move on to the Q&A section. And I haven't seen any question yet, so feel free to ask your questions or post your comment in the chat box now. I just want to share with you a couple of other workshops that we do deliver around International Women's Day. So a very successful workshop is around why we should talk about imposter syndrome to support gender equity. A lot of women feel that imposter syndrome is really holding them back. And so talking really, shining a light on imposter syndrome and how it's impacting women in the workplace is very important. So it's a very successful workshop. Another one we have is around championing women at work. So it's about sort of educating men in the workplace around how they can be champions of women in the workplace. And that's, again, very popular. People really love that. It's very inclusive, and it's really helping to, well, educate men on how they can become champions of women in the workplace. Practical allyship is, again, is a very practical, lots of concrete takeaways, a great workshop to educate your colleagues around how they can become better allies in the workplace to women, but also to any other underrepresented groups. And then, of course, we talked about menopause in the workplace. So it's a great workshop to raise awareness around the need, the need of women who live with menopause at work, and demonstrating how they are impacted in their day-to-day work by the impact of menopause. And then finally, I think I mentioned that one before, the parents and carers in the workplace workshop is very topical for International Women's Day, because still in 2023, a lot of women still have the biggest childcare load, compared to, the data shows that women still do the biggest majority of, school drop-off and school pickup and things like that. So it's very important to raise awareness of the impact of being a working parent and how that impacts women and men in the workplace.